I want to give you a quick introductory tour of ChemDoodle, and once you have this downloaded and the full version, remember you're going to not get a free trial, but say you have a site license, so just follow the directions on how to download that. You should be emailed a code that you'd put into that window, and then you'd hit enter, and then you'll be able to download the full version. What you can see is this is a window-based application where you get a bunch of maybe icons that you're not familiar with at this point, but I'm going to walk through some of them with you so that you can start looking at how to make different types of chemical reactions. So the first up here is a typing tool, so you can click on this and you could click on the window somewhere and you can type whatever you want. So that would be just to maybe annotate your chemical reaction, for example. Next, down below, that is a periodic table. So you can select any of these elements that you might want to put into your chemical reaction. I'm going to skip this. I'll come back to this in a little bit. These are chemical lines that you can draw between different compounds. If you just select this by itself, that places by default a carbon. And if I click on that again, it'll kind of point up, and you can make longer chains in that way. I'll show you in a moment, you could click down here as well. This is an N version, and it'll basically, you can click here and you can pull, once you click at one, you can pull, and you can pull, for example, 10 carbons. And there are different variations of that as well that can make chains off of your base carbon. This is a handy tool for making benzene rings or different types of ring structures in different orientations and formats. So if you want a benzene ring, you'd push one time to get your carbon placed, and then your ring will come off that carbon however you want it to be displayed. These are for proteins. We're not going to get to this really, but that is something you can mess around with in biochemistry class, for example. Attributes are these different, we can have lone pairs, we can have a single electron, you can have radical anions, decrease, increase the charges. So these will tell you what's happening at these locations. So if I have a positive charge, for example, on this nitrogen, you can pull that off, and that will then change the number of hydrogens, for example. We don't really have to use this too much, but sp orbitals, if you are interested in showing the orbital states, here are some of those files. Before I show you arrow formalism, let's add some other things here. It's going to have some lone pairs. What you'll notice that hydrogen is still sitting there, so I'm going to right click on this oxygen, format atom, and there are some things that you can change here. So for example, I don't want it to show implicit hydrogens. I'm going to take that one off. You can change hiding or displaying the carbons. There's different types of things you can do in terms of changing the size or ignoring warnings, for example. Notice that hydrogen went away. I'm also going to give this a negative charge, so I'm going to put that formal charge on that oxygen. I'll put it down here. And then I'm going to use this to be able to select this one little lone pair. Kind of move those around so we can see that. Now I'm going to go down to this arrow, and I'll be able to use that, and I can select one of these lone pairs to go from. I'm going to start from that lone pair. I'm going to point it at the bond, and you can see then that takes the lone pair and it points an arrow at the bond. If I want to undo something, it's this red arrow. Now let's say I wanted to go to this bond, and it would point to this bond instead. So it just depends on the starting material, and then the ending point, it'll take those arrows and point it. This isn't very common, but let's say we'd want to take one of those electrons and we want to show where that's going to go. Maybe we would point a single arrow from there over. So those are some of the common tools that you might use. I'll upload a few other videos that are more in depth, but that's a quick overview of a lot of the tools that you'll need to use. We can see arrow formalism, we can see the different types of arrows, reaction arrows, for example, that we might want to use to show a chemical reaction between the starting materials and your products. Other things that could be helpful for making some of your posters, there are a lot of different glassware components on here, so adapters, apparatuses like balances or flames, for example, scales, different types of heating elements, columns for reflux or for different purification, connectors, containers, flasks. So you can recreate a lot of the experiments that you might be showing on your different your lab that you'll be using. So you can see all of these different options. These are kind of fun too, more for biology, but if you have any need for those are also available on this program as well. So just again, a quick overview. If you have questions about this more or interested in some of these other icons, I can certainly talk you through them. This is a quick overview of that process.